captains of the industry, from banking to auto to consumer goods, they all came calling to North Block today with the budget wish list. The finance minister and his top bureaucrats discussed means to boost growth and spur investments. Corporates seek a stable tax regime and insist on no tweaking of taxes. In fact, India Inc. wants the highest tax slab to be raised from the 20 lakh to current 10 lakh. And while PMESC chairman proposed an inheritance tax on the super rich, India Inc. staunchly disagrees. The industry also wants speedier implementation of the goods and services tax. While Chidambaram has soothed nerves of many investors by bearing the ghost of Gar, depleting revenues and mounting expenditure has scared the industry, which doesn't want to be the golden goose.
The auto industry is a potential element to kickstart growth and it should not be treated as a golden goose which has to be taxed.
Corporate India and the government were at war path, and the confidence is just beginning to revive. The finance minister has a tightrope walk to win back industry's trust or to fix the fiscal mess, which may actually mean a little pain for India Inc. The verdict will be locked in the customary brown briefcase. India Inc. is intently watching. Suchetna Ray and Mrinalini Krishna, ET Now, New Delhi.
Joining us on the show this evening are two CEOs who were present in that meeting with the finance minister, are the Godrej Chairman of the Godrej Group and President of CII, as well as Naina Kidwai, Country Head HSBC India and President of FICCI. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Business Tonight. Mr. Godrej, if I can kick it off with you, was the issue of higher taxes discussed in the meeting? What was industry's point of view? Did you put up your point that it could hurt sentiment, which is just about picking up right now?
That's difficult to say because they didn't react to our suggestions, but I think they ought to understand that, because anything that negatively affects sentiment will affect investment and therefore growth. The best way to collect more taxes is to create higher growth. For example, if the GST is introduced, to my mind, tax collection will zoom. If other steps are taken which will encourage growth, again taxes will increase. So the best way to collect more taxes is not to increase rates of taxes, that has never worked in our country, but to create growth-oriented policies.
Mr. Godrej, great to have you join us right outside North Block, but I want to bring Naina Kidwai also into this debate. Naina, there's been plenty of buzz about tax slabs being tweaked. What did the industry tell the finance minister, and did he have a ready answer?
The uniform view was, please don't put taxes up. We have a GST regime around the corner, which is what we should be really moving to. All of industry absolutely endorses that the GST regime is critical. It will bring a minimum of 1.5%, hopefully 2% GDP growth into the country, and we need GST. And in the interim, please don't touch tax structures, because anything that spooks the market can bring the market down just when government has a huge disinvestment calendar, and should really be looking at ensuring that the markets stay high, stay attractive for the disinvestment calendar to move ahead and to bring into the government's coffers the best possible prices for these companies as they are disinvested.
Right. Mr. Godrej, there's a debate the world over when it comes to inheritance tax. Do you think a developing country like ours should have an inheritance tax?
There are no inheritance taxes by and large in the developing world. In the developing world, you need high rates of growth, which needs high rates of savings and reinvestment. In the developed world, their savings rates are much lower. Inheritance taxes may work in those countries, but in India, even when we had estate duty, which was abolished in 1986, the cost of collection was higher than the collection. And in those days, when we had high wealth tax, estate duty, high rates of income tax, our growth rate was 3%. It has not worked in our country, it doesn't work in the developing world, and it should not be resorted to in India.
Ms. Kidwai, a word from you then as far as inheritance tax is concerned. The debate has been in the public domain for some time now. Do you think the time is right? Because there seems to be indication from the North Block that it actually may be introduced.
You really want to conserve wealth in a manner that it goes back into entrepreneurship, promoting new companies, promoting new investment, and not distracting from it. And there is a danger that by imposing new taxes of this order, which do not exist in any other developing market in the world, that you bring taxes in which are much more akin to the developed world, much before India should have it. and you spook investment away, people begin to move wealth offshore, begin to set up companies offshore, find ways of really not paying these taxes, and indeed for the little bit that the government might collect, it really plays maybe more into a public gallery rather than collects money, but it can have the effect that the stock markets get impacted, that they come down just at a time when government should have a very attractive market for its disinvestment calendar.
Fair point. But Nana, I want to get your thoughts on what really was discussed in the meeting to revive the investment cycle, other than, of course, a rate cut from the central bank. Any key proposals made by industry on what will revive the investment cycle?
Suggestions from industry were certainly around ensuring that, as I've said, the tax regime stays stable. Accelerated depreciation was discussed, and one or two of the representatives even talked of investment allowance, so just ways to bring investment back in, and essentially to ensure that at least from a tax regime standpoint there was stability. There were specifics that we discussed on some industries, some which needed some clarification, either because import duties were high and they were essentially importing with a view to export. So to look at the structure for some of those industries, gems and jewelry got mentioned. Vicky certainly brought up real estate as an area where low-cost housing could be a very big investment opportunity. And in many countries, in fact, housing starts are watched for economic growth because they bring employment, they bring construction, the cement industry and other industries benefit from it.
Fair point, fair point. I want to get Mr. Godrej also back in the debate. Mr. Godrej, the biggest concern from a macro point of view, other than the fiscal deficit, is of course the growing current account deficit. You know, even the finance minister today acknowledged the magnitude of this crisis in the meeting with CEOs. What was suggested? What are the ways really available for the government to contain this?
Well, first of all, we have suggested a 10% tax on crude palm oil imports, which will not affect the cost here because international prices will come down if we levy a duty. Currently we have zero duty. That could help. We have also suggested that there be interest subvention for exports across the board. It is badly needed at this stage. And we have made several other suggestions to increase our exports. And of course, I think the finance ministry, we didn't make any particular suggestion, but the finance ministry is looking how to reduce our gold imports, which, as you know, in the last financial year were about $60 billion.
Right, Ms. Kibai, we'll let you have the last word. You know, confidence is just about reviving. Does India Inc. run the risk of being the golden goose as the finance ministry looks to fix the fiscal mess that we're finding ourselves in?
Well, it won't be the golden goose for long if it's the one that's hit on. Because right now, if you look at the revenue collections from industry, they're actually going down because industry investment is down, growth is down, and we will in time see profits therefore also suffer. While industry looks for interest rates to come down, the top line growth also beginning to suffer. So it's going to be important, and I think that is what the finance minister has recognized in his opening comment to us today, that he really wanted to see growth back in the agenda. And I'm sure that they will be mindful of that and not want to in any way impact that growth.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us with your thoughts on business tonight. Mr. Godrej, lovely having you from joining us from right outside North Block with your thoughts on what really transpired in that meeting. Thanks so much. Shift focus to the other big story this evening in some glimmer of hope for the most ambitious tax reform. That's the GST.